Thank you very much, Anthony, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming out today on a kind of rainy spring day. Thank you for inviting me to your beautiful campus here in Markham. And I'd like to give an unsolicited special shout out to Anthony and to remind you guys, if you aren't already aware, how very fortunate you are to have Anthony as an instructor. I've spoken and guest taught at a whole lot of programs around Toronto, and I can tell you no program in the GTA is doing what Anthony is here today. He's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk in terms of the live webcasts, the digital involvement. He is actually leading the way for you guys. He is setting the excellent example for you guys in terms of what you need to be successful ad people of the future, which is completely comfortable with digital, and not only comfortable with digital, but embracing it daily. Okay, so thank you also for your wonderful support of ad teachings. Every morning I go on Google Analytics and I see how many clicks have come from the Markham area, and that keeps me going all the time. So thank you very much for your kind support. A little bit about me, for those of you who don't know me so very well. My name is Suzanne Pope. I'm a freelance copywriter and creative director in Toronto. I've been writing ads for 20 plus years. Actually, this year this spring is my 25th year, so I'm going to have to update that header. I've had the good fortune of working at some really terrific agencies. I've worked at Ogilvy and Mather. I've worked at John Street. I've worked at Taxi, and these days I'm working for a bunch more great agencies as a freelancer. So I've had the rare opportunity, the unusual opportunity of having a career that has spanned the decades, from the time when you could actually find typewriters in an advertising agency to today, where I don't know that anyone actually makes typewriters anymore. To get started, I'd like to show you my very first ad, which actually wasn't from the 1980s. It actually appeared a bit earlier than that, because my father was a copywriter, and he would sometimes put us kids in his ads. And this was an ad for the Admiral portable black and white television set. And as you can see, it was a demonstration ad because my brother was demonstrating that it was light enough for a 4-year-old to carry. So that's it, my first ad. So as for today's talk, I asked Anthony, what would you like me to address in today's chat? And he wrote back and said, your main topic is focused around the big idea. Where does it come from? What is the future of the big idea, and certainly storytelling, and how to get ready for your career and for the challenges of this industry. So that's a big, wide-ranging topic, and I'd like to start by asking you guys a question, and I'd like to see a show of hands. How many of you guys are feeling completely confident about getting out there, getting your internship, and being hired from your internship into an award-winning career? Show of hands. Well, we have three. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm gonna presume that the rest of you are maybe not feeling quite so secure. That the rest of you are feeling, shall we say, a certain sense of alarm about what the future holds for you. That maybe the navigating of the waters of advertising is perhaps not your favorite thing to be thinking about right now, but it is a reality. And I don't blame you if you guys are feeling nervous, because the business is tougher and more competitive than ever. You know, back in my day, the tough challenge was landing your first paying job, getting a junior chair in a creative department. But back then, they actually paid you, right? Today, the expectation is that you'll sign on for free or for bus money, and that is the new reality. I wish that weren't the reality, but that is what you guys are facing, so you definitely have my sympathy. What I hope to achieve in today's talk is to find a way to kind of mellow you guys out, to calm your souls, because there is actually good news for you guys. And the good news for you guys, and I mean this sincerely, is that there has never been a better time to be a young person in advertising. The shifting, changing business model of advertising means that agencies need cheap talent. That would be you guys. And agencies also need a lot more roles and positions filled than they did 25 years ago. So with that said, the title for today's talk is Don't Wait to Be Great. Seize upon the opportunities that are afforded to you by the fact that you're young, by the fact that you're cheap, I mean inexpensive, and by the fact that you are digital natives. I know that's become just a dreadful cliche, but the fact is you guys grew up with the internet. You will always have a level of comfort that people even just 10 years older than you will not have. So to set a bit of context for you as we talk about the need to not wait to be great, let's take a trip back into time. And we're going to go back in time to the year when my career started, which was 1988. I actually had that jacket and that haircut. And what I can tell you about 1988, what I can tell you about 25 years ago, was that advertising was way less complicated then. We would get I was about to say we would get a meeting maker. No, we wouldn't get a meeting maker. We would get, someone would come to our desk and say, it's time to be briefed. We'd go into a room, and it would be me, my art director, and one account person, and sometimes they would bring along a junior account person. So there was a maximum of 4 people in the room. And when we 4 people were in the room, the list of possible assignments was very short. Like if you got a brief that talked about print, television, radio, outdoor, transit, and direct mail, that was considered a huge honkin' brief. Usually it was just a print ad or a television commercial. And I don't need to tell you that today, the list of deliverables, as they're now called, would be much, much longer. I mean, stunts, all these things are things that ad agencies are now doing. Back when my career started, there were certainly publicity stunts. There have always been publicity stunts, but ad agencies didn't really do them. It would be PR companies that would do that sort of thing. You know, today we have ambient, we have online, we have mobile, we have microsites, we have Facebook content, and I've probably left a few things off of that list. And because the touch points, because the means of communicating to people have become so numerous and so varied, we've actually come up with a new word, a new name for what we do, and we call it brand storytelling. We call it brand storytelling. Now, back in my day, we didn't call it brand storytelling. If, you know, that would have been an odd term, but it's now a very appropriate term. But just because it's a fairly new term, let's not kid ourselves. Brand storytelling, by whatever name, has always been a huge part of advertising, and I'm going to demonstrate that to you now. Can anyone tell me who this man is? Marlboro Man. And what's interesting to me is that all of you are young and you are recognizing an icon that has not appeared in North American advertising for over a decade. You still know that it's the Marlboro Man. There's no cigarette in this image. There's no Marlboro logo, but yes, indeed, you correctly identified that was the Marlboro Man. And as you can see from the Spanish health warning at the bottom, that icon has had international, global relevance and significance. Which is amazing. You know, in the 1980s, I was fortunate enough to do some traveling through Europe and Africa, and wherever I went, I saw posters with the Marlboro Man. He is such a meaningful icon that he has managed to cross cultural lines, cultural boundaries. I should say that I feel a little weird saying anything nice about the tobacco industry at all, but the fact is that some of the best marketing thinking ever has been done in service of that industry, so we might as well learn from it what we can. So what we're seeing here is a pretty simple brand story, right? We see the cowboy and we know that it's a story of masculinity, of independence, of hard work, of stoicism. We get a sense of what that story is about, even though we don't hear a whole lot of details about the Marlboro Man. We kind of know what he's about. We kind of know what he's about, and we understand him to be an aspirational figure to the male smoker. However, you might be surprised to hear that the original brand story for Marlboro was very different. It was originally a brand marketed to women. And the reason it was marketed to women in the 20s, 30s, and 40s was that it had a filter tip in an era when most cigarettes were not made with filter tips. They were just kind of raw tobacco at either end. So their sales message was, ivory tips protect the lips, right? So for literally decades, it's a bit of a mind bend to go on Google and Google old Marlboro advertising, because it looks nothing at all like what we have come to understand a Marlboro ad to be. And then something happened. In the early 1950s, the first scientific studies came out demonstrating that smoking caused lung cancer. And so the tobacco industry had to move quickly. So they thought, okay, we'll tell people that filter cigarettes will filter out the poison so that smoking is now safe. That obviously is not true, but that was their story and they were sticking with it. And so all of a sudden they needed a male-targeted brand with a filter. And the answer was to reposition Marlboro. Now, the Marlboro Man appeared very early, but he wasn't a cowboy. Their original campaign featured very masculine guys in very masculine occupations, all with these hand tattoos. So we saw here a wrestler, We saw, I don't know what this dude is, but he has a dueling scar, so he must be badass. We saw a journalist, a newspaper man, again with the hand tattoo. We saw a construction worker. And as you noticed, you can tell that in the early days they were trying to go for kind of a Nike swoosh effect. They were trying to establish that hand tattoo as an ongoing brand icon. Also in this original campaign was the Marlboro cowboy. And because of his instant popularity, he was immediately adopted as the brand icon. And he remained as such for the next 40 years, 35, 40 years. So we are seeing a way of brand storytelling that is very different today. There are huge differences between the way brand storytelling happened then and the way it happens today. For one thing, in the old days of brand storytelling, marketers could set it and forget it. So in the case of Marlboro or Coca-Cola or whatever, the art director would go out and shoot 6 months worth of images, beautiful images, to promote the brand, and then come back to his office in New York City and basically not have to do anything more, right? The campaign was set and he could go off and work on something else. The other big difference versus today is that in the old days, marketers had complete control of the message. So if somebody was upset with Coca-Cola or Marlboro cigarettes or whoever, they might have commented to friends or neighbors or coworkers, but they did not have a platform for announcing their displeasure to the entire earth and to the entire world. That obviously has changed very substantially. Today, because of social media, marketers have to be putting out messages constantly, and in addition, because of social media, anyone, either legitimately or unjustly, can lodge a complaint about a brand. So the reality of marketing today is this: that the way marketing was done in the past is not compatible with the demands of a new digital world. Today's brands need their communications to be more interesting, more involving, more flexible, and more frequent. So in other words, today's brands require brand storytelling. But what exactly is brand storytelling? Now, I've seen a whole bunch of definitions on the web, and I took a go at trying to define it myself. And what I came up with is this. Brand storytelling is the use of mostly new media to deliver brand messages that have the potential to be more varied, frequent, and engaging than those delivered by traditional media. Now, brand storytelling is different from, when we think of storytelling, we often think of novels and films. Brand storytelling is somewhat different from that in the sense that you can't necessarily script the life of a brand in the real world the way you can script a Hollywood film. The Hollywood film is a closed universe, and you can make things happen the way you want. In the real world, there can be surprises that force you to change your course. So you cannot strictly plan a story arc the way you can if you're writing a novel or making a film. However, having said that, I can tell you that good brand stories have certain things in common with good stories in general. To begin with, good stories move forward with intention, even when nothing much is happening. So if you guys, if you're fond of action films, no matter how many car chases are in an action film, every once in a while the action has to slow down. We have to understand what the characters are doing, how they're relating to each other. We have to understand what their plan is for tomorrow and the next day. So even in the most busy action film or the most exciting, thrilling story, there have to be moments of pause. But we tolerate those moments of pause because we know we're being set up for the next turn in action, for the next event. It is similar with good brand storytelling in that our favorite brands tend to suggest forward motion even when nothing much is happening. So, for example, Nike and Apple might not be releasing a new product today or tomorrow, but the fact that they have such an impressive track record of releasing interesting products in the past, it keeps us interested, it keeps us excited, it keeps us talking about things online. I wonder what the next Apple product is going to be, when is the new iPhone coming out, that sort of thing. So we have a sense of forward motion with the best brands, even when nothing much is happening. The second thing is that, a second similarity is that good stories set up problems to be resolved. As you'll remember from high school English, to be successful, a story needs conflict. There has to be a problem to be solved in a story. Otherwise, if everyone's happy and nothing's going wrong in anyone's life, you'll be bored. You won't have any reason to watch the film or to read the book. The same with good brand stories. And once again, the best example of this sort of thing is Apple. Countless times over Apple's history, they've recognized problems in the marketplace that other brands were not solving. Perfect case in point, the issue of music downloading. For years, the record companies were obviously, and still are, very upset about illegal music downloading. They wanted desperately to set up a model by which people could pay for music, artists would be compensated, and it would all be entirely legal. But they could not get their act together. It took Apple to enter the scene with iTunes and the iPods and all the rest of it that suddenly solved the problem and actually made the problem look simple, which they achieved something that the record companies had never been able to do. So good stories set up problems to be resolved. The third similarity is this. Good stories are guided by a unifying idea. If you go and see a war film and in the middle it becomes a chick flick, you're going to be very disappointed. You expect the movie to be you expect the story to be what the story is for the duration, for the full 2 hours. There might be a romantic subplot, but that ain't why you paid your $13. It is also true with brands that they have to be guided by a unifying idea. So, for example, Nike, no matter what Nike does, today, tomorrow, yesterday, it will always be about the athletic potential that resides within each of us. Nike will always be about exhorting us to get out and do whatever we possibly can, because that's what makes human existence worth living. Apple will always, I have to raise an instance here where a brand was not true to its vision. Apple, for its entire business life, has been about radical ease of use, simple, intelligent design. However, at the last Summer Olympics, I don't know if any of you guys saw these commercials for the Apple Genius. It was a very strange series of commercials in which the Apple Genius, in which people were having difficulty using their Mac computers, and the Apple Genius had to come and rescue them by basically teaching them how to use their computer, how to use their Macs. So this was a gross violation of the unifying idea behind Apple. And predictably, people were outraged and upset and made fun of the commercials, and Apple eventually yanked them off the air. So we see that there is a danger in not respecting and not being true to your unifying brand story. Okay. So what we're seeing is that brand storytelling gives us all kinds of powers, okay? We're now in a situation where brands have 24/7 access to media that is actually free. It costs them pretty much free. It costs them, they have to pay to set up a website, but otherwise being on social media and all the rest of it is absolutely free. And that complete liberty to talk nonstop poses certain dangers. Certain clients might take advantage of the ability to talk nonstop by saying just garbage nonstop. I'll give you an excellent example here. Here's a page from the Hertz Rent-A-Car website. And what we're seeing from this page is that these guys have done very well in consumer consumer voting. That they've been voted the best car rental, the best self-service, the best shuttle service, the best. So I'll save you the counting. They've actually used the word best 17 times on that page, which is I mean, if you met a new friend and he spent like 5 minutes telling you 17 times that he's the best at this and that and the other thing, you would not want to hang around this person very long. You would be very bored and think. And it's the same with brands. And this reality brings us to the first rule in brand storytelling, which is it's not about you. And I don't mean you guys personally. I'm saying it's not about Hertz Rent-A-Car. It's not about Coke. It's not about Nike. It's about the consumer who will have use for those brands, the consumer who is being encouraged to make those brands part of his or her life. So what I'm saying is that implicitly or explicitly, the hero of your brand story must be your consumer. And, even in the Marlboro ads, the implied, male smokers were looking at a guy in a cowboy hat whom they would never ever meet. But implicitly, readers were invited to project themselves into that ad and to actually become the Marlboro Man in fantasy. So indeed, the consumer was the hero of Marlboro advertising. Another brand that successfully made a hero of the consumer was Apple. You might remember this creative from the launch of the iPod, and it was a great campaign in that what was so great and unified about the campaign was that the wild postings looked the same as the print advertising, looked the same as the outdoor advertising, looked the same as the television commercial. But if you look at these ads, you know, the iPod is there, but it's not about the iPod. Those ads are not about the iPod. Those ads are about the joy of being able to have your music wherever you want it at any time, all your favorite songs. Some ads that I posted on Ad Teachings over the weekend did a similar thing. These ads were done in Chile for a brand called Ripped, a nutritional supplement. And usually when you see ads for nutritional supplements, what you're seeing is bragging about, you know, organic sourced vitamins, finest nutrients, workout support. So basically it's a lot of chest beating on the part of the brand. The beauty of these ads, of these two ads, is they are about the consumer. You know, I am that runner, right? And I see that Ripped is going to support me in my workout to make my workout easier. So that's an ad that's about the consumer and not about the brand. That is advertising done right. I think those are terrific ads. Another brand that has done a good job of drawing consumers in a sense, in fantasy, is Audi. A recent big winner of awards in New York was an idea by Zulu Alpha Kilo in Toronto. And what it involved was an invitation to test drive an Audi. But it wasn't a conventional test drive. It was one of those little kiddie slot racing. Well, I mean, it was quite an elaborate slot racing set that invited people to test drive on this little model track using an iPad as the steering wheel. So it was a fantastic idea in that it very astutely drew people into the fantasy. You know, if anyone loves cars more than grown men, it's little boys, and it drew consumers into that little boy fantasy of playing with a toy and thinking about Audi as a high performance vehicle. It was a truly brilliant idea. Now, sometimes your consumer becomes part of your storytelling, not just in fantasy. You know, the way it was with the Audi racetrack, not just in fantasy, but in actual fact. So, rule number 2 in brand storytelling is this. The best brand stories make consumers feel that they are co-authors of the narrative. Co-authors, actual co-authors of the narrative. And a brand that has done this to great effect is Skittles. They have, I understand there's a Seneca alumnus who is part of the Skittles campaign created by BBDO in Toronto. Their idea through their YouTube campaign was to invite participation in their commercials, in their YouTube videos, just by placing your finger on the screen. So we're going to see 3 examples of that right now.
Touch the rainbow. No, seriously. Put your index finger on your screen where the Skittle is. A video is going to start, and your finger is going to be so delicious. So make sure it's there, now. Lick the rainbow. Taste the rainbow. Touch the rainbow. No, seriously. Put your index finger on your screen where the Skittle is. A video is going to start, and your finger is going to go to war. But only if it's there. Now.
Cover me, Dex! I'm going in! Oh. Dex! Come over here, Dex! I don't think I'm gonna make it. Remember that time when we was just little baby fingers, and you got a boo-boo? You was in a Band-Aid for days. A Band-Aid ain't gonna fix this one, Dex. So promise me something, you big knucklehead. Promise you'll take care of Pinky for me. I know you love her, and I know I'm the only thing standing in the way of you two being together. I'm gonna die now. Oh.
Outlive the rainbow. Taste the rainbow. Touch Touch the rainbow. No, seriously. Put your index finger on your screen where the skittle is. A video is going to start, and your finger is going to help fight crime. So make sure it's there now.
Stupid finger.
Ooh, gotcha. Did you really think you'd get away with stealing all those Skittles?
But I didn't steal these. They're mine.
I don't see your name on them.
Actually, it's on every one.
What is your name? S?
Yeah?
S from Skittles Camp 97?
Yeah? Oh! Cage! What's up, man? I didn't recognize you with the hat.
Reunite the rainbow. Taste the rainbow.
So Skittles did about a zillion of those YouTube videos for almost no money at all, and obviously they're great award-winning creative. So that's like a really inventive way for people for brands to invite consumer participation in what they're doing. There's also the lame-ass default way that brands do that, and it typically involves Facebook pages. We all know how brands speak on Facebook. They pretend that you're involved in the brand when in fact you really aren't. So check this out from Pepsi's. So someone named Selena says, "Bring back vanilla Pepsi." And Pepsi replies, "Thanks for your input, Selena. We will pass your comments along." I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Selena should not hold her breath for vanilla Pepsi to come back anytime soon. But that's the sort of patronizing way that brands typically talk to consumers on Facebook. And there are a million and one examples of it. The typical thing is click like if you like Fridays, right? Here's one for a pet food brand. "Puppy is on the run, but where is he off to?" And this particular brain teaser from Twix, "Can you unscramble this message?" Right? So what we see is this notion that brands have that they must constantly be talking to consumers, even if all they have to say is stupid and boring. And sometimes it crosses the border of stupid and boring and becomes downright offensive. The day after the Boston Marathon bombings, a website called Epicurious, all about cooking, posted these tweets. "In honor of Boston and New England, may we suggest whole grain cranberry scones? Boston, our hearts are with you. Here's a bowl of breakfast energy we could all use to start today." So, yeah. So I think a lot of brands on Facebook and on Twitter lose sight of the fact that social media relationships, they appear quite anonymous, but they're still like real world relationships in that you have to be respectful and you have to know when to shut up, right? And so brands like that eventually get into trouble with consumers because they aren't understanding how social media works. So the question is, how do we make consumers feel that they have a meaningful role as the co-authors of our stories? How do we avoid that kind of boring, patronizing default position that most brands have on Facebook? Well, a couple of weeks ago, you had John Finkelstein on your webcast. Today he's at Proximity as their executive creative director, but previously he was at Grip, and he spoke of a fantastic example of something done by Kokanee to make consumers co-authors in the story. Kokanee actually made a movie. They actually made a movie for theatrical release. It wasn't just a product placement exercise. They made a real movie for theatrical release. And not only did they make a real movie for theatrical release, they crowdsourced some of the content of that film. You could go online and audition for a cameo in the film. You could submit a prop to be used in the film. If you were a bar owner in Western Canada, you could propose that your bar be used as a location. And you could upload tunes to be considered for the soundtrack. And indeed, it was a legitimate way to get people involved in the brand, and it was hugely successful. Another brand that has had good success making consumers literal co-authors of the story is Doritos. I think for the past, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 years, but for the past while, they've been holding an annual contest in which the winner gets their basically homemade Doritos commercial shown during the Super Bowl. Canon, the camera maker, has also launched a very successful program. I think now it might be in its third year. It's called Imagination, and in this program, consumers are invited to upload photographs. And in the first edition of Imagination, the film director Ron Howard selected the 8 best images to use to inspire the making of a short film, which was broadcast on the web. So it all hangs together very tightly, and it gives people it gives your consumers an authentic way to really participate in the creative. So now that we've talked about storytelling, let's talk about ideas, because there is no storytelling unless you have an idea or several ideas to guide that story. You guys are in a time of your life where you're trying to grasp what is ephemeral. Ideas are loose and slippery and sometimes foggy. There seems to be a bit of magic in coming up with them. But despite the fact that they're magic, you are obliged to work and work and work some more to make your ideas good or to improve the ideas that you have. So what I'm going to say to you, which I hope will bring a bit of comfort, is that there are 5 things to remember about ideas. I can tell you that it's still about one big idea. Sometimes people lose sight of this fact because there's so many touch points in which you're expected to deliver thinking these days, right? But as with Nike and Apple, all your ideas should ladder back up to that main core essence of the brand. And so with Apple, it's simple, smart design. With Nike, it's your personal potential as an athlete. The second thing I can tell you about ideas is that these days it's more okay to fail. 25 years ago, there was a big pot of money, and it paid for your print campaign, and it paid for your television commercial, and if you made a mistake, if you put out something there that people hated, it was a fairly disastrous mistake. The good news today is that ad agencies are doing a million things, apps and microsites and all the rest of that, and because they're doing a million things, the budget devoted to each tactic is not going to be huge. It's not going to be a deal breaker. So if you put something out there online that doesn't work, people don't like it, it's not a big deal. You take it offline and you invest your money in something new, in a different idea. Okay, the next thing I can tell you about ideas is that you already have what you need. You already have what you need. In that, people sometimes feel it's necessary to know a lot about cars or running shoes or hamburger helper or whatever have you. It actually isn't. You guys already have what you need because you've been on the planet for 20 odd years, 20 to 30 years. You've been on the planet for this long, which means you've been human for that length of time, which means you have human experience. And all the best advertising, plenty of bad advertising is about products and features, but the best advertising tends to be about human experience. And I'll show you some examples of that right now.
Mom! Hey, Mom!
Parents in bed, but it's just 8 o'clock. That's why they taught you should always knock. He needs ragu, 'cause growing up's tough. Give him ragu, he's been through enough.
A long day of childhood calls for America's favorite pasta sauce.
And a second commercial.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, Louis.
Hi. Working late?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. There's no one else here.
Uh-huh.
Listen, I'm just gonna go for a drink later. Maybe you'd like to come with me?
No, I got a lot of work to do.
Oh, okay.
Silence the stain instantly. Time to go. Now in a mini.
And one more spot.
So tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm a fast learner and I'm very responsible.
I haven't checked your references yet, but I did check online.
Playland, now open daily.
So what we see in all 3 of those commercials, it's interesting. You know, the ragu commercial was not about Italian cuisine. The Tide commercial was not about laundry day difficulties. The Playland spot was not about roller coasters or amusement parks. All the team, you know, if you've been on this planet for as long as you have, you already know what childhood trauma feels like. You already know what it feels like to be rejected by your crush. You already know what public humiliation feels like. In other words, because you're human, you already have the raw materials you need to do good advertising. And the beauty of these spots is that they tap into emotions that we feel belong to us alone, but they are in fact universal. They are in fact part of the human condition. The fourth thing I can tell you about advertising ideas or ideas in general, is that completely original ideas do not exist. Every idea that has ever been, every invention, every great idea on earth is actually a combination of pre-existing ideas. You know, your smartphone is a combination. It's a mashup of a computer with a phone. The Swiffer wet jet is literally just a diaper on a stick. That's all it is. And similarly, we see that advertising ideas are often legitimately based on things that have come before without being a ripoff. One example I can give you is the great campaign entitled "The Most Interesting Man in the World" for Dos Equis beer, and I'm going to show you a couple of ads from that right now.
If he were to pat you on the back, you would list it on your resume. Both sides of his pillow are cool. When in Rome, they do as he does. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis. Stay thirsty, my friends.
It is said that he once shot a bear, then nursed it back to health, then shot it again.
Stay thirsty, my friends.
Okay, this campaign has received the highest possible praise from the internet in that it has been made into memes. I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I drink a lot. And memes based on memes. I don't always drink coffee because I'm a cat. So the people who have hated on this campaign have said, oh, it's just a ripoff of Chuck Norris jokes. Death once had a near Chuck experience. When I slice onions, onions cry. And Chuck Norris is the only person who owns 2 birthday suits. I actually disagree. It is entirely possible that the team that did Dos Equis was inspired by Chuck Norris jokes, but they took that idea of a larger-than-life hero and took it into a more interesting universe. It wasn't about being a tough badass anymore. It was about being a very interesting and sophisticated man. And indeed, the writing that they did for that campaign was just superlative. I don't think they can be accused of ripping anybody off. I'd like to show you one more campaign that is much more recent, and it also borrows on pre-existing creative, but the creative that this next campaign borrows on is the kind of commercials that we haven't seen since the 1980s.
You gotta wash your body the manly way, and the freshness will follow you all through your day. It's literally following you everywhere. This could actually be a fairly serious problem. This is not good because he's probably ruining that person's body who he's operating on. This is way more freshness than anyone expected. New Old Spice bar soap, never leave your house again.
What's so hilarious about this creative, it is that it's perfect, even to the typography at the end of the spot, it's completely 80s advertising. Here's another one.
If you're playing to win, here's a brand new soap for you. Nope, I was wrong. This is a commercial for fruit. Nope, I was right. It's a really weird commercial for soap.
So there's a lot of guidance you can take from that Old Spice campaign in that, in a sense, there's not a lot new about the campaign in that, bombastic 80s anthem commercials existed before this campaign did, and parody commercials existed before this campaign did. But the team found a way to bring them together and actually to bring something new. I mean, I've never seen a commercial in which a basketball got sliced in half and became watermelon, right? So that's your challenge. You know, build on stuff that's around you. Don't be afraid to borrow from stuff that's around you. But what is absolutely essential is that you put some of your own thinking, some of your own creativity in there to make something entirely new. The final thing I have to tell you about ideas is that, and no one really wants to hear this ever, but it is that quality comes out of quantity. Well, you know, one of the huge temptations when you're sitting there with your creative partner, you're trying to come up with ideas, because coming up with ideas is tough, there's a temptation to stop when stuff is good enough. Okay, we've got 4 or 5 good ideas here, let's go see our creative director. No, you have to keep going. You have to be like a dog with a bone. You have to keep chasing better ideas and better ideas and better ideas. This is a reality of advertising that, you know, when you go and see your creative director, you're going to need more than 4 or 5 ideas, right? Ideas have to be like ninjas, plentiful and always willing to die. And when you go out to your client, you're going to need at least 3 campaigns to go out there with, right? So what you need to do is to make sure you have enough ideas from the outset that when you go and see your client, you know, you might have your preferred campaign, but whatever of the 3 he or she chooses, make sure that you're pleased and proud to produce it. And the only way you can make that happen is by having a whole lot of ideas at the outset, by really treating yourself as an inexhaustible fount of ideas. So that's all I have to say. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can.